Slow down and listen closely, because this might be the first time anyone has told you the truth without sugarcoating it. Your reactions are controlling your life. Your impulses are running your decisions. And every time you explode, overthink, chase, or defend yourself, you give your power away. Self-restraint is not weakness. It is strength. It is control. It is strategy. It is the skill that separates the chaotic from the unshakable. Today, you stop reacting. Today, you reclaim the power you've been giving away. Welcome to the Power of Self-Restraint. Chapter 1. Stop reacting to everything. You react too fast. You react too loud. You react too emotionally. And every time you do, you give away pieces of your power without even realizing it. That's the hard truth. And you need to hear it right now. Because the biggest leaks in your life, the biggest losses, the biggest regrets, almost always come from moments where you reacted instead of responding. Moments where impulse took over. Moments where emotion made the decision for you. And that's the trap. That's the weakness. That's the pattern that has to end. Here's the core lesson of this chapter. Overreaction is self-sabotage. Not sometimes. Not occasionally. Every single time. An emotional outburst doesn't make you strong. It exposes your lack of control. A defensive rant doesn't make your point. It reveals your insecurity. A fast reaction doesn't show confidence. It shows fear. And that's why today, right here, right now, you're going to embrace the phrase that will anchor this entire chapter. You have a choice. Say it again. You have a choice. Because that is the truth you keep forgetting. You act like your reactions are automatic. You behave like your anger just comes out. You let yourself believe the story that this is just who I am. That's not discipline. That's not maturity. That's not strength. Your reactions are not uncontrollable. Your reactions are untrained. There's a difference. And that's the key. Let's break it down. There is a universal gap, tiny but powerful, between what happens and how you respond. Most people ignore that gap. Most people let emotions sprint through it and take over everything. But the strong, the disciplined, the self-controlled, they protect that gap with their life. Because in that gap, you decide whether you stay powerful or hand your power away. In that gap, you choose clarity over chaos. In that gap, your entire future behavior is shaped by a single moment of discipline. This chapter is about reclaiming that gap. This chapter is about training the pause. This chapter is about remembering, again and again, that you have a choice. Let's talk about the difference between reacting and responding. A reaction is emotional. A response is intentional. A reaction is fast. A response is measured. A reaction is impulsive. A response is strategic. A reaction is a release of your feelings. A response is an expression of your standards. That's the key. You don't need their permission to respond with discipline. You don't need approval to stay calm. You don't need validation to choose control. You just need to stop letting your emotions speak before your mind does. Look at your life. Look at the patterns. How many arguments spiraled because you reacted instantly? How many relationships cracked because you couldn't hold your tongue? How many opportunities slipped away because you let frustration speak for you? People don't lose respect because of the problem. They lose respect because of their reaction to the problem. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. You felt that embarrassment after blowing up. You felt that regret after saying things you didn't mean. You felt that shame after acting out of impulse instead of intention. But today that ends. Because reacting is not about anger. It's about control. It's about self-leadership. It's about discipline. It's not about being emotional. It's about being prepared. And you have a choice. Every moment, every conversation, every trigger. Choice. Let me give you real-world examples. In relationships, someone says something disrespectful. You want to fire back. You want to defend yourself. You want to win the moment. But the moment you react emotionally, the dynamic shifts. You're no longer in control. You're just participating in chaos. Self-restraint gives you perspective. Self-restraint lets them reveal themselves. Self-restraint protects your respect. At work, a coworker makes a mistake. Your boss criticizes you. A client complains. Most people explode or panic. But leaders breathe. Leaders wait. Leaders assess. Because leaders understand that composure is currency. In daily inconveniences, traffic, delays, unexpected problems, people being people, these things don't destroy you, your reaction to them does. Life doesn't get easier, but your responses get stronger. And that's the key. Now let's talk about what you must do, not just think, not just understand, but do. Here's your action step. For big decisions, use the 24-hour rule. Sit with it. Let the emotion settle. Sleep on it. Return with a mind that's no longer clouded. If it's urgent, they'll say so. If it's real, it will still matter tomorrow. And if it loses importance after 24 hours, it never deserved your reaction in the first place. Now for the small stuff, the texts, the comments, the disagreements, the little triggers that hit you 20 times a day. For those, use the 10-second rule. 10 seconds of breathing. 10 seconds of silence. 10 seconds of stepping back into your power. 10 seconds is enough to shift from emotional to intentional. 10 seconds is enough to protect your energy. 10 seconds is enough to remember. You have a choice. Because that's the truth behind all self-control. You're not fighting the world. You're fighting your own impulses. You're fighting your need to react. You're fighting the part of you that thinks emotion is action. But emotional outbursts don't solve problems. They create them. You can't build a powerful life if you keep surrendering to weak moments. You can't build respect if you keep abandoning self-control. You can't build discipline if you keep feeding your reactions. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's about being strategic. It's about being the version of yourself that thinks before acting. Because the real power is not in the reaction. The real power is in the restraint. This chapter is the foundation of everything that comes next. If you don't master this, nothing else in this audiobook will work. Not discipline. Not emotional control. Not calm. Not detachment. It all starts here. It all starts with the pause. It all starts with remembering the same truth. You have a choice. You can react like the old you, or respond like the new you. You can lose control, or take control. You can give away your power, or reclaim it. Choose wisely, because now that you understand the power of restraint, it's time to go deeper. You've learned to stop reacting. Now let's talk about the force behind your reactions, your emotions. Chapter 2. Emotion is a weapon. Use it, don't leak it. Your emotions are not the enemy. Your lack of discipline around them is. That's the part nobody teaches you. That's the truth nobody tells you. People say, don't be emotional, but that's not the problem. The problem is leaking emotion instead of using emotion. And that's the key. Say it with me. Control is the advantage. Because emotion is energy. Emotion is fuel. Emotion is raw power. But only if you know how to direct it. Undisciplined emotion destroys you. Directed emotion elevates you. Leaked emotion weakens you. Controlled emotion strengthens you. And you have a choice. You always do. You can leak your emotions like everyone else. Or you can weaponize them like the few who win consistently. Understand this. Emotions are not random. They are signals. Signals of values. Signals of boundaries. Signals of what matters to you. Weak people treat emotions like uncontrollable floods. Strong people treat emotions like data. High performers don't suppress how they feel. They harness it. Control is the advantage. Look at the people who operate under extreme pressure: athletes, military operators, negotiators, emergency workers. They all have emotions. They all feel fear. They all feel stress. They all feel intensity. But they don't leak emotion. They don't spill energy everywhere. They don't let panic spill into the room. They use every ounce of emotion as fuel for clarity, focus, and execution. That's the difference. That's the separation. That's the line between amateurs and professionals. You have a choice. You don't need their permission to stay composed. You don't need approval to stay grounded. You don't need validation to choose control. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about mastering emotion. It's not about being cold. It's about being calculated. It's not about ignoring your feelings. It's about leading them. Because the moment your emotions lead you, you lose. Let's break this down. Emotion becomes destructive when you spill it into every situation. Rage when things don't go your way. Anxiety when uncertainty hits. Jealousy when you feel insecure. Impatience when things move slower than you want. These reactions don't make you strong. They expose your lack of discipline. You think people respect your passion? They're reacting to your volatility. You think people admire your intensity? They're responding to your instability. You think people fear you because you explode? They simply avoid relying on you. Control is the advantage, and self-control commands respect. Now let's talk about the key idea of this chapter. Emotion is a weapon, not a toy, not a flaw, not a weakness. A weapon. But a weapon is only as effective as the person who wields it. A sword in the hands of a child is dangerous to the child. A sword in the hands of a trained warrior becomes an extension of their power. Your emotions work the same way. When you leak emotion, you hurt yourself. When you channel emotion, you build yourself. When you wield emotion with discipline, you become unstoppable. Your anger? It's not the problem. Use it. Aim it at your goals. Aim it at your training. Aim it at your improvement. Your fear? It's not the problem. Use it. Let it sharpen you. Let it alert you. Let it prepare you. Your frustration? It's not the problem. Use it. Let it push you to refine your habits and elevate your standards. It's never about the emotion. It's about the discipline. Now let's get practical. Let's break this into real-world scenarios. Scenario 1. In conflict. Most people explode. Most people defend. Most people get loud. But high performers? They stay calm. They listen. They breathe. Not because they're passive, but because they're calculating. Emotion is their intel. Emotion reveals the truth behind the words. Emotion shows them the real issue. Emotion gives them leverage. Control is the advantage. Scenario 2. In competition. Look at elite athletes. They feel everything you feel: fear, excitement, anxiety, pressure. But they use it. They convert emotional intensity into physical performance. While the average person is overwhelmed by adrenaline, the professional channels it like a laser. You have a choice. Every single time. Use it or lose it. Scenario 3. In negotiation. The person who controls emotion controls the room. The emotional one always loses. Boys. Because emotion reveals desperation. Emotion reveals insecurity. Emotion reveals weakness. The calm person gains leverage. The calm person creates tension. The calm person wins. Control is the advantage. Now let's talk about what you must do. Not someday. Not eventually. Today. Here's your action step. Daily 5-minute emotional check-in. Set a timer. Sit still. Ask yourself 3 questions. What emotion am I feeling right now? Name it. Identify it. Clarity defeats confusion. Where did it come from? Was it triggered? Was it predictable? Was it justified? What is the disciplined response? Not the emotional one. Not the impulsive one. The disciplined one. This tiny ritual trains emotional awareness. Emotional discipline. Emotional weaponization. Because you cannot control what you refuse to acknowledge. And you cannot use what you cannot define. 5 minutes. Every day. Before the world touches you. Before triggers hit you. Before you leak anything. This is how you build emotional intelligence with teeth. This is how you build composure under fire. This is how you train yourself to use emotion instead of being used by emotion. And remember, you don't need permission to be emotionally disciplined. You don't need approval to stay in control. And you don't need validation to remain composed. You have a choice. Every time. Choose control. Because here's the truth that changes everything. When your emotions stop spilling, your potential stops shrinking. When your emotions stop leaking, your strength starts rising. And when your emotions become tools instead of liabilities, you become a force no one can ignore. Control is the advantage. And emotional discipline is the foundation of real restraint. Now that you've learned how to use your emotions instead of leaking them, it's time to understand what drains your emotional power more than anything else. Your reactions to other people. You controlled yourself internally. Now you must control yourself externally. Get ready for the next lesson. Chapter 3. The Discipline of Holding Your Tongue. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not passivity. Silence is not fear. Silence is leverage. And most people will never understand that because most people talk too much. They talk to fill gaps. They talk to soothe insecurity. They talk because they're uncomfortable with stillness. They talk because they need validation from the sound of their own voice. But not you. Not anymore. When you understand restraint, you understand power. When you understand silence, you understand influence. When you understand when not to speak, you understand authority. And that's the key. The key is simple. You have a choice. You can speak impulsively like everyone else. Or you can speak intentionally like the disciplined few. You don't need their permission to stay quiet. You don't need their approval to be thoughtful. You don't need anyone's validation to hold your tongue. You only need discipline. Because it's not about being loud, it's about being strategic. It's not about winning every argument, it's about controlling yourself. It's not about saying everything, it's about saying the right thing. Most people don't hold their tongue because they lack one thing. Intention. They talk before they think. They react before they understand. They speak from emotion, not clarity. That's why they lose arguments. That's why they escalate conflicts. That's why they reveal their insecurities without even knowing it. Think about the last time you spoke too quickly. You probably apologized later. You probably regretted it. You probably said something emotional instead of something effective. Because you handed your power away the moment your mouth outran your mind. Holding your tongue is discipline. And discipline is control. And control is the advantage. Let's analyze this with real depth. Disagreements. Arguments. Conflicts. These are emotional minefields for people who lack restraint. They rush to fill the silence because silence feels like loss. They rush to defend themselves because silence feels like surrender. They rush to explain because silence feels like vulnerability. But that's the illusion. Silence is not surrender. Silence is strategy. Silence is not fear. Silence is composure. Silence is not weakness. Silence is mastery. When you stay quiet during conflict, something powerful happens. The other side reveals themselves. They reveal their intentions. They reveal their insecurities. They reveal their motives. They reveal their emotional state. They reveal their priorities. You learn more from silence than you ever learn from speaking. And here's the part most people never realize. The person who speaks first usually loses leverage. They show their cards. They show their emotions. They show what they're afraid of. They show what they want. But the person who waits, watches, and listens, they see everything. You have a choice. Every conflict, every argument, every disagreement, you have a choice. Speak impulsively and lose control, or stay silent and gain clarity. Let's go deeper. Silence forces the other person to deal with themselves. When you don't react, they confront their own words. When you don't respond, they hear their own tone. When you don't interrupt, they expose their own contradictions. Your silence becomes a mirror they can't escape. That's the key to emotional dominance. Not aggression. Not volume. Not fury. Restraint. People expect defensiveness. People expect anger. People expect arguments. But they don't expect silence. And that unexpected restraint destabilizes them. Silence disarms people. Silence makes them rethink. Silence makes them reveal the truth behind their performance. Silence makes them show their hand. Because when you remove your words, you remove their excuses. When you remove your reaction, you remove their fuel. When you remove your defensive energy, you remove their power. You don't need their permission to stay quiet. You don't need to match their tone. You don't need to explain yourself emotionally. You only need discipline. Now let's look at practical scenarios. Scenario 1. In an argument. If you rush to respond, you escalate. If you rush to defend, you validate. If you rush to speak, you lose guidance of the conversation. But if you pause, if you stay silent, if you let them continue, they will reveal the real issue. They will reveal their emotional state. They will reveal their lack of clarity. Silence exposes. Scenario 2. In negotiation. Silence is one of the strongest tools in the world. You make an offer. You stop talking. Most people panic. Most people start explaining. Most people negotiate against themselves. But disciplined silence forces them to respond first. And whoever breaks the silence first usually breaks position. You have a choice. Speak to relieve your discomfort, or stay silent and let them reveal their need. Silence applies pressure, and pressure creates advantage. Scenario 3. In relationships. Arguments become wars because people talk too quickly. The ego jumps in. The emotion kicks in. The tone rises. And truths get replaced with impulses. But the disciplined person, the one who holds their tongue, brings stability into chaos. Silence resets the emotional temperature. Silence diffuses the storm. Silence prevents irreversible words. Holding your tongue saves relationships more than talking ever will. It's not about shutting down. It's about showing strength through restraint. Now let's talk transformation. What must you do starting today? Action step. Speak only after forming the intention behind the words. Before you open your mouth, ask one question. What is the purpose of what I'm about to say? If the answer isn't clear, don't speak. If the intention isn't defined, don't speak. If the words aren't necessary, don't speak. You have a choice. You don't need their permission to slow down. You don't need their approval to be intentional. Here are your 3 guiding questions. Does this need to be said? Most things don't. Silence will say it better. Does it need to be said by me? Some battles aren't yours. Some reactions aren't worth your energy. Does it need to be said right now? Timing is power. Emotion is not. When you answer those 3 questions, you speak with precision, not impulse. You speak with intention, not reaction. You speak with discipline, not insecurity. That's how you become a person whose words carry weight. Because the fewer words you use, the more impact each one has. You don't become respected by talking more. You become respected by talking less, but meaning every word. Silence is leverage. Restraint is power. Holding your tongue is self-mastery. And self-mastery is the foundation of true strength. You've now learned the art of strategic silence. You've learned how to protect your power instead of wasting it. Now it's time for the next level of restraint, the restraint that shapes your identity, your habits, and your future. You mastered your reactions. You mastered your voice. Now, let's master your impulses. Chapter 4. Don't feed what you want to kill. There's a simple rule that governs your emotional life. What you feed grows, and what you starve dies. That's the key. That's the law. That's the truth most people refuse to accept. They want peace, but they feed chaos. They want respect, but they feed disrespect. They want clarity, but they feed drama. They want strength, but they feed weakness. You have a choice. Every single day you have a choice. Feed the thing that's ruining you, or starve it until it loses its grip. This chapter is about one concept, one discipline, that can change your entire emotional reality. Stop feeding what you want to kill. It's not about being tough. It's about being disciplined. It's not about being emotionless. It's about being selective. It's not about being cold. It's about being intentional. You don't need their permission to stop giving attention to nonsense. You don't need their approval to stop entertaining manipulation. You don't need validation to walk away from disrespect. You only need discipline. Because discipline is the gatekeeper of your energy. And your energy determines your entire life. So let's break it down. Most people think their problems continue because the world is unfair. Their problems continue because they keep feeding them. They keep responding to disrespect. They keep arguing with drama. They keep decoding manipulation. They keep trying to fix people who don't want to change. They keep revisiting situations that already proved themselves toxic. You cannot kill a problem you keep feeding. You cannot escape a cycle you keep walking back into. You want to change your life? Here's the formula. Starve the weakness. Strengthen the discipline. Let's look at the psychology behind it. Every reaction you give is food. Every emotional outburst is food. Every defensive explanation is food. Every time you take the bait, you feed the trap. People who provoke you operate off one principle. If you react, they win. If you respond emotionally, they gain control. If you keep engaging, they keep feeding off your energy. Drama survives on your participation. Disrespect survives on your tolerance. Manipulation survives on your confusion. Remove your reaction, remove their power. Remove your energy, remove their influence. Remove your attention, remove their access. You have a choice. And the moment you realize that, your entire world shifts. Let's analyze this with precision. Example. Someone tries to provoke you. They want a reaction. They want to rise. They want you to break character. Because your reaction feeds them. Your reaction validates them. Your reaction tells them you're still invested. If you respond, the cycle continues. If you stay silent, the cycle dies. If you starve the provocation, it loses power. The cycle only exists because you participate in it. And that's the key most people miss. They think they're defending themselves, but they're actually feeding the conflict. You can't break a loop by energizing it. You break a loop by starving it. This applies everywhere in your life. In relationships, if someone only comes alive when you're upset, stop giving them your upset. If someone only feels powerful when you chase, stop chasing. If someone only behaves when you react, stop reacting. Starve the dysfunction. Strengthen the discipline. In friendships, if someone constantly brings drama, stop engaging. If someone keeps disrespecting boundaries, stop justifying. If someone thrives on chaos, stop giving them space to perform. You have a choice. Be pulled into their world, or protect your own. In your own mind, this part is the most important. Your fears, your anger, your self-doubt, they behave like living things. What you repeatedly focus on, you feed. What you constantly think about, you strengthen. What you obsess over, you nurture. You want confidence? Stop feeding insecurity. You want focus? Stop feeding distraction. You want peace? Stop feeding mental noise. It's not about talent. It's about discipline. It's not about motivation. It's about boundaries. It's not about emotion. It's about direction. Your attention is fuel. If you waste it, you weaken yourself. If you direct it, you transform yourself. Now, let's talk transformation in real steps. Action step. Remove the fuel, attention, reaction, energy. This is your new rule. If it drains you, starve it. If it distracts you, starve it. If it belittles you, starve it. If it manipulates you, starve it. If it doesn't align with who you're becoming, starve it. You don't need their permission to detach. You don't need their validation to withdraw your energy. You don't need to justify why you're no longer feeding dysfunction. You simply remove the fuel. Here's how you do it. 1. Stop responding immediately. Instant reactions are emotional reactions. Delayed reactions are disciplined reactions. Silence starves provocation. 2. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You can't educate someone who benefits from your confusion. Don't feed the manipulation. 3. Stop trying to correct disrespectful people. You don't fix disrespect. You walk away from it. Don't feed the disrespect. 4. Stop revisiting the same draining conversations. If it hasn't changed by the 10th conversation, it won't. Don't feed the repetition. 5. Stop giving time to those who drain your emotional power. Your time is fuel. Your presence is fuel. Your attention is fuel. Withdraw them. And here's the deeper transformation. When you stop feeding what weakens you, you automatically strengthen what empowers you. When you starve chaos, you feed clarity. When you starve fear, you feed courage. When you starve insecurity, you feed confidence. When you starve impulsiveness, you feed discipline. That's the key. Everything grows or dies based on what you feed. You have a choice. You've always had a choice. And the most powerful choice is simple. Starve the weakness. Strengthen the discipline. Now let's seal this chapter with truth. Your life doesn't change when you learn more. Your life changes when you stop feeding the things that sabotage you. You mastered silence in the last chapter. Now you've mastered detachment in this one. Next, we go deeper. Because after you remove the fuel, you must learn how to replace it with strength. You've emptied the space. Now it's time to fill it with something better. Chapter 5. The Power of Delayed Responses. You think speed is strength. You think firing back instantly makes you powerful. You think quick reactions mean confidence. They don't. Speed is the enemy of wisdom. Speed is the enemy of clarity. Speed is the enemy of discipline. That's the key. You're not impulsive because you're emotional. You're impulsive because you fear silence. You're uncomfortable with the pause. You're terrified of the space between stimulus and response. Because in that space, you're exposed to yourself. Your insecurity shows. Your doubt surfaces. Your ego screams. So you react fast to avoid facing it. But here's the truth you've avoided for years. Power lives in the pause. Wisdom lives in the pause. Control lives in the pause. You have a choice. You can keep reacting out of fear, or respond out of discipline. This chapter is about reclaiming that space, that mental space, that emotional space, that strategic space, the space that gives you the upper hand. The strongest version of you isn't the fastest version. It's the calmest, the most measured, the most deliberate, Delayed responses are not weakness. They are strategy. They are leverage. They are control in its purest form. Let's dive in. When you respond instantly, you give up two things: your clarity and your leverage. You sacrifice both because your ego wants to feel seen immediately. But the moment you delay, even just for a few minutes, everything changes. Delaying a response forces the other person to sit with their own words. Delaying a response reveals their actual intentions. Delaying a response forces them, not you, to experience uncertainty. Psychologically, the one who waits is the one who holds power. Look at high-level negotiators. Look at elite athletes. Look at military operators. Look at diplomats. They don't rush. They don't react instantly. They don't panic. They sit. They pause. They watch. Because the pause reveals more than the conversation. When you wait, you see details others miss. You see patterns others overlook. You see inconsistencies others hide. People expose themselves when you give them space. Here's the part you must burn into your mind. Your delay forces their truth to surface. If someone's lying, waiting makes them slip. If someone's manipulating, waiting exposes the cracks. If someone's insecure, waiting amplifies their instability. If someone's bluffing, waiting makes them retreat. You don't need to confront people to see who they are. Just wait. Just pause. Just breathe. Silence is the mirror that pretenders hate. But let's reverse it. Look at what happens when you react instantly. You spill your thoughts. You reveal your emotions. You expose your insecurity. You show what hits you hardest. You reveal your intentions before understanding theirs. Instant reactions give away too much. Delayed responses reveal nothing. You have a choice. Feed your impulse, or build your discipline. And here's something even deeper. Instant responses come from ego. Delayed responses come from strength. It's not about intelligence. It's about emotional discipline. It's not about being cold. It's about being controlled. It's not about fear. It's about strategy. Everything in your life changes once you master this. Let's look at real scenarios. In arguments, the fastest reply is usually the dumbest reply. The fastest reply is usually the most emotional reply. The fastest reply is usually the one you regret. A delayed response allows emotional combustion to die out. It allows your brain, your actual reasoning, to come back online. That's the key. Instant reactions come from the body. Delayed responses come from the mind. In negotiations, the one who speaks last controls the terms. The one who pauses longest controls the pace. Silence makes the other side reveal their pressure points. In relationships, delaying your response prevents you from saying words you can't take back. It stops you from escalating conversations that never needed heat. It protects connection instead of destroying it through emotional reflex. Delays save relationships. Delays build respect. Delays create stability. In everyday life, when someone cuts you off, when someone disrespects you, when someone irritates you, when someone pushes your buttons, instant reactions strengthen their control over you. Delayed responses strengthen your control over yourself. You have a choice. You've always had a choice. You just never used it. Now let's talk transformation. The real advantage of delayed responses is simple. You think better when you're not racing your emotions. Delayed responses unlock 3 superpowers. 1. Clarity. You see what's actually happening, not what your emotions want you to believe. 2. Composure. You stay grounded even when the situation tries to pull you out of character. 3. Control. You set the pace. You set the tone. You set the emotional temperature of the interaction. This is what power feels like. Quiet, measured, intentional. You don't need their permission to slow down. You don't need their approval to wait. You don't need validation to think before speaking. You only need discipline. Now let's talk about the actionable part. The part that rewires your behavior. The part that transforms your default reactions. Action step. Delay every non-essential response by minutes or hours. Here's the system. 4 minor triggers. Delay 10 to 30 seconds. Take a breath. Let the first impulse pass. See the moment without the emotional fog. 4 moderate triggers. Delay 10 to 30 minutes. Walk away. Drink water. Detach. Let the surge drain out. For major triggers, delay 12 to 24 hours. This will save your career. This will save your relationships. This will save your peace. You have a choice. A reflex is not a command. A feeling is not a requirement. An impulse is not an obligation. It's not about perfection. It's about intention. It's not about silence. It's about wisdom. It's not about being slow. It's about being strategic. You don't win by moving fast. You win by moving right. Remember this. Impulsive reactions build regret. Delayed responses build respect. This chapter taught you how to slow your mind. The next chapter teaches you how to guard your space. You've mastered the pause. Now you must master the perimeter. Chapter 6. Detach or be controlled. You don't lose control because life is chaotic. You lose control because you're attached. Attached to outcomes. Attached to validation. Attached to people who don't think twice about you. Attached to interpretations, assumptions, and fantasies you created. That's the key. Attachment creates vulnerability. Attachment makes you predictable. Attachment makes you emotionally fragile. And here's the truth. The moment you need something, you give it power over you. The moment you need someone, you hand them your emotional steering wheel. You have a choice. Detach or be controlled. This isn't about being cold. This isn't about being numb. This isn't about pretending you don't care about anything. It's about keeping your center. It's about retaining your power. It's about not letting anyone, intentionally or accidentally, dictate your emotional state. Because here's the reality. If someone can pull you out of character, they already own a part of you. If someone can trigger you, they already control you. If someone can destabilize you, they already influence your decisions. Detachment is the antidote. Detachment is the discipline. Detachment is the weapon. Most people don't know how attached they are. You don't even recognize it until life rips something out of your hands. Until a person leaves. Until a job ends. Until a moment breaks. Until your expectations collapse. When you're attached, you don't see reality. You see what you want reality to be. You see what you wish people were. You see the version of events you constructed to make yourself feel safer. Detachment brings clarity. It removes the fog. It removes the emotional bias. It shows you what is not what you hope for. Let's break it down because this is where transformation begins. Attachment to people. You think closeness requires clinging. It doesn't. You think love requires dependency. It doesn't. You think loyalty requires emotional surrender. It doesn't. Most relationships fail because one person is too attached to the fantasy of how the other person should behave. You're not in a relationship with them. You're in a relationship with your expectations of them. Detach from the fantasy. See the person. That's the key. Attachment in the workplace. Your job stresses you out because your identity is glued to it. Your boss triggers you because you crave approval. You overwork because you want to be seen as valuable. But work doesn't demand attachment. It demands discipline. It demands consistency. It demands clarity. Detach from the fear of being replaced. Detach from the pressure to prove yourself. Detach from the need to please. You don't need their permission. You don't need their validation. You don't need their constant praise. You only need discipline. Attachment in friendships. You stay in draining friendships because you're attached to history. You tolerate disrespect because you're attached to an image of loyalty. You carry emotional burdens because you're attached to being the reliable one. Detach from roles others forced onto you. Detach from the guilt narratives. Detach from the idea that you owe everyone access to you. Your peace is not a group project. But here's where it gets deeper. Attachment isn't just about people. It's about emotions. It's about identity. It's about ego. You're attached to being right. Attached to being understood. Attached to being validated. Attached to being liked. Attached to outcomes going exactly how you imagine. That attachment is what drains you. And you have a choice. Detach or be controlled. Let's break down the mechanics of detachment. Detachment is not withdrawal. Detachment is not apathy. Detachment is awareness. It is the ability to observe without absorbing, to witness without drowning, to care without clinging. When you detach, you stop taking everything personally. When you detach, you stop making every situation about your insecurities. When you detach, you stop letting the world yank your emotions like puppet strings. People can say whatever they want. People can behave however they choose. People can take actions that disappoint you. But none of it touches your core, unless you choose to let it in. That's the key. That's the discipline. Detachment gives you 3 powerful advantages. 1. Emotional stability. You stop being tossed around by every inconvenience. You stop letting other people's moods dictate yours. You stop spiraling from scenarios you created in your own head. 2. Mental clarity. You think clearly because you're no longer thinking through fear, insecurity, or bias. You make better decisions because you're not operating from desperation. 3. Personal power. When you're detached, people don't control you. When you're detached, situations don't knock you off center. When you're detached, you respond, not react. Detachment is the ultimate form of self-restraint. And self-restraint is the foundation of strength. Now let's talk about transformation. You need a practice, a method, a repeatable, daily discipline that rewires your emotional default. Here it is. Action step. Practice emotional zoom out. Observe, don't absorb. Whenever something triggers you, a comment, a message, a tone, a situation, pause and zoom out. Imagine you're watching the moment through a camera lens. You're not inside it. You're observing it. Ask yourself, what exactly is happening? What am I projecting onto this? What part of this is under my control? What am I assuming without evidence? What emotion is blinding me right now? Zooming out breaks the attachment. Zooming out breaks the emotional spell. Zooming out gives you the power to respond with discipline, not instinct. You have a choice. Every moment, every reaction, every interpretation. Detach or be controlled. It's not about being cold. It's about being centered. It's not about being distant. It's about being deliberate. It's not about being unfeeling. It's about being unshakable. When you detach, you stop losing yourself in other people's storms. When you detach, you stop letting your fears dictate your moves. When you detach, you stop feeding the insecurity that has controlled you for years. This chapter taught you to reclaim your inner space. Next, you'll learn how to guard that space with discipline. You've learned to detach from external influence. Now let's talk about what creates internal strength. Chapter 7. You don't owe the world your feelings. You've been taught to express yourself, to open up, to share what you feel. And yes, there's a place for that. But here's the truth no one teaches you. You don't owe the world your feelings. Not your fear. Not your anxiety. Not your loneliness. Not your frustration. You want power? Start by controlling the flow of your emotional information. Because emotional exposure is emotional risk. And emotional risk given to the wrong people, becomes emotional damage. That's the key. Most of your setbacks didn't come from your emotions. They came from who you handed those emotions to. And you handed them out freely. You gave people access they didn't earn. You gave people stories they didn't deserve. You gave people details that empowered them and weakened you. You have a choice. You always did. Privacy is power. And you don't need their permission to protect it. The truth about oversharing. Let's get this straight. Oversharing isn't vulnerability. It's undisciplined emotional dumping. It's an impulse. It's a reaction. It's a lack of control. It feels good in the moment, but it costs you long-term stability. Because the world is not responsible for your emotional comfort. The world is not obligated to hold your pain correctly. The world is not required to protect what you reveal. And when you forget that, you suffer. You expose yourself to people who don't care. You expose yourself to people who pretend to care. You expose yourself to people who will use your truth as leverage later. It's not about shutting down. It's about strategy. It's not about hiding. It's about discipline. It's not about being cold. It's about protecting your peace. You have a choice. Use it. Why you overshare? Let's be honest. You've been oversharing because you want something. You want validation. You want comfort. You want attention. You want connection without the risk of rejection. And yes, people use oversharing as a shortcut to belonging. You think if they understand your pain, they'll treat you better. You think if they know your story, they'll stay. You think if they see your vulnerability, they'll respect you. But that's not reality. Not in this world. People respect discipline, not emotional exposure. People respect boundaries, not emotional flooding. People respect those who control their inner life, not those who spill it everywhere. You don't need their permission to stop oversharing. You just need discipline. That's the key. The psychology of silence. Here's what you don't realize yet. When you speak less, people listen more. When you reveal less, people value what you do reveal. When you share selectively, people treat your words with weight. Privacy is power because privacy creates mystery. Mystery creates respect. Respect creates leverage. And leverage creates control. You have a choice. And the choice is simple. Do you want emotional release or emotional power? Because you can't have both. Not with everyone. Not all the time. That's the key. What you must stop doing. Stop telling people everything you feel the moment you feel it. Stop rushing to explain yourself. Stop giving emotional access to people who earn nothing. Stop using emotional disclosure as a coping mechanism. This is the tough love truth. If you can't control your emotions, someone else will. If you can't control your voice, someone else will twist it. If you can't control your boundaries, someone else will cross them. It's not about being cold. It's about being intentional. You have a choice. Make it wisely. What you must start doing. Start practicing emotional discipline. Start pausing before you share. Start asking yourself, does this person earn this part of me? That's the key question. If the answer is no, then the conversation ends there. If the answer is no, then your silence is the boundary. If the answer is no, then your privacy is the protection. You don't need their permission to keep your emotional life private. Because your emotional world is yours. Not the world's. Not your coworkers. Not your acquaintances. Not the stranger online. Yours. And when you treat it like something valuable, something sacred, something that must be protected, your life gets quieter, calmer, stronger. The art of selective disclosure. Here's the rule. Only reveal emotion to people who have shown emotional responsibility. Notice the word, shown, not claimed. People can fake empathy. People can pretend to listen. People can act like they care. But emotional responsibility is revealed over time. through behavior, through consistency, through presence. You have a choice. And you don't need their permission to wait. If someone hasn't earned your trust, they don't earn your truth. It's really that simple. That's the key. The power of boundaries. Your boundaries aren't walls. They're filters. And filters protect what's valuable. Your emotions are valuable. Your inner world is valuable. Your experiences are valuable. Stop handing them out like flyers. Start treating them like currency. Because emotional exposure is a transaction. And transactions require standards. Your standards decide who gets access. Your standards decide who deserves trust. Your standards decide who gets to hear your truth. You have a choice. Start choosing better. Action step. Control your emotional flow. For the next 7 days, do this. Limit your emotional disclosure to people who have earned trust, not impulse. If you're about to overshare, pause. If you're about to vent, ask yourself why. If you're about to tell someone something personal, evaluate their track record. This single discipline will change your relationships. It will change your boundaries. It will change your confidence. It will change how people treat you. Because you teach people how to handle you by how you handle yourself. That's the key. You don't owe the world your feelings. You owe yourself protection, discipline, and control. And once you master that, you gain something even more powerful. Emotional independence. You've strengthened your boundaries. Now let's take it deeper. Chapter 9. Pressure is a privilege. Stop running from the heat. Stop hiding from the test. Stop pretending you can achieve massive results from a comfortable position. The delusion of easy growth is a cancer we must excise immediately. You are being lied to by a culture obsessed with softness. We reject that lie today. Pressure. Say the word. Feel the resistance in your chest. Most people see pressure as a negative, a sign to slow down, to back off, to protect their soft edges. They whine about stress. They complain about the workload. They are fundamentally misunderstanding the mechanism of growth. Pressure is not a problem. Pressure is a privilege. It is the single most effective environment where mediocrity dies and excellence is forged. It is a gift given only to those who dare to take on a significant challenge. It is a rare, high-stakes opportunity to prove who you actually are under duress. The furnace of disciplined fire. Pressure doesn't break you. It builds you. That is the absolute, non-negotiable truth. A diamond is nothing more than a lump of carbon that handled immense pressure over time. You are no different. Your character is not built in the easy moments. It is revealed and hardened when the screws tighten and the stakes are highest. You think you're disciplined? You think you have the resolve required for the mission? You only get to answer that question when the deadline is 2 hours away, when the client is furious, when the budget is cut in half, and when everyone else is pointing fingers and dissolving into panic. That is the true test. That is the only test that matters in your career and in your life. Stress is not an obstacle to be avoided. Stress is the training ground for discipline. It forces an immediate choice. Do you revert to your flawed, untrained state, the state of procrastination, the state of panic, the lashing out, the avoidance? Or do you stand tall, activate the systems you've built, and execute the plan you swore you'd follow? It's not about natural talent or good luck. It's about discipline. The elite performer does not have less stress than you. They have more. They willingly pursue it. They take on bigger projects. They chase higher stakes. They operate where the margins for error are razor thin. Because they know that only under maximum load can they truly test the limits of their system and achieve maximum output. They understand that pressure is the ultimate, non-biased filter. The filter, committed versus casual direct hit. Look at the highest levels of achievement in any field. Elite soldiers, world-class athletes, visionary entrepreneurs. groundbreaking surgeons. What do they all share? They all exist in a voluntary and constant state of elevated pressure. Pressure is the filter that separates the committed from the casual. The casual person sees pressure and quits. They instantly find an excuse. They rationalize their failure with external factors. They say, "This is too much pressure for me." They want the success, the recognition, and the rewards, but they want it all delivered without the sacrifice. They want the trophy without the struggle. They don't deserve the privilege of the fight. The committed person sees pressure and immediately focuses. Their voice gets quieter. Their mind gets clearer. They stop thinking about the outcome and execute only the next small step with precision. They don't need their manager's approval. They don't need their family's validation. They are operating entirely on self-imposed, non-negotiable standards of performance. You have a choice in that critical moment of crisis. Do you wilt under the heat, or do you harden into steel? Think about the young entrepreneur launching a radical new business. The first year is an endless cycle of pure, unrelenting pressure. There is financial strain, relentless 18-hour days, and constant, demoralizing rejection. The casual entrepreneur blames the market, blames the economy, and folds the business. The committed entrepreneur uses the pressure as a high-octane fuel source. They cut waste. They pivot strategies. They innovate aggressively. Pressure doesn't break you. It builds you. That's the key. The pressure itself is irrelevant to the final outcome. Your disciplined response to it is everything. Chapter 9. Pressure is a privilege. Stop running from the heat. Stop hiding from the test. Stop pretending you can achieve massive results from a comfortable position. The delusion of easy growth is a cancer we must excise immediately. You are being lied to by a culture obsessed with softness. We reject that lie today. Pressure. Say the word. Feel the resistance in your chest. Most people see pressure as a negative, a sign to slow down, to back off, to protect their soft edges. They whine about stress. They complain about the workload. They are fundamentally misunderstanding the mechanism of growth. Pressure is not a problem. Pressure is a privilege. It is the single most effective environment where mediocrity dies and excellence is forged. It is a gift given only to those who dare to take on a significant challenge. It is a rare, high-stakes opportunity to prove who you actually are under duress. The furnace of discipline. Pressure doesn't break you. It builds you. That is the absolute, non-negotiable truth. A diamond is nothing more than a lump of carbon that handled immense pressure over time. You are no different. Your character is not built in the easy moments. It is revealed and hardened when the screws tighten and the stakes are highest. You think you're disciplined? You think you have the resolve required for the mission? You only get to answer that question when the deadline is 2 hours away, when the client is furious, when the budget is cut in half, and when everyone else is pointing fingers and dissolving into panic. That is the true test. That is the only test that matters in your career and in your life. Stress is not an obstacle to be avoided. Stress is the training ground for discipline. It forces an immediate choice. Do you revert to your flawed, untrained state, the state of procrastination, the state of panic, the lashing out, the avoidance? Or do you stand tall, activate the systems you've built, and execute the plan you swore you'd follow? It's not about natural talent or good luck, it's about discipline. The elite performer does not have less stress than you. They have more. They willingly pursue it. They take on bigger projects. They chase higher stakes. They operate where the margins for error are razor thin. Because they know that only under maximum load can they truly test the limits of their system and achieve maximum output. They understand that pressure is the ultimate, non-biased filter. The filter, committed versus casual. Look at the highest levels of achievement in any field. Elite soldiers, world-class athletes, visionary entrepreneurs, groundbreaking surgeons. What do they all share? They all exist in a voluntary and constant state of elevated pressure. Pressure is the filter that separates the committed from the casual. The casual person sees pressure and quits. They instantly find an excuse. They rationalize their failure with external factors. They say, "This is too much pressure for me." They want the success, the recognition, and the rewards, but they want it all delivered without the sacrifice. They want the trophy without the struggle. They don't deserve the privilege of the fight. The committed person sees pressure and immediately focuses. Their voice gets quieter. Their mind gets clearer. They stop thinking about the outcome and execute only the next small step with precision. They don't need their manager's approval. They don't need their family's validation. They are operating entirely on self-imposed, non-negotiable standards of performance. You have a choice in that critical moment of crisis. Do you wilt under the heat, or do you harden into steel? Think about the young entrepreneur launching a radical new business. The first year is an endless cycle of pure, unrelenting pressure. There is financial strain, relentless 18-hour days, and constant, demoralizing rejection. The casual entrepreneur blames the market, blames the economy, and folds the business. The committed entrepreneur uses the pressure as a high-octane fuel source. They cut waste. They pivot strategies. They innovate aggressively. Pressure doesn't break you. It builds you. That's the key. The pressure itself is irrelevant to the final outcome. Your disciplined response to it is everything. Your action step: seek discomfort willingly, flex biceps. The masses are engaged in a lifelong, self-defeating mission to make their lives easier. They automate, they delegate, they simplify, and they medicate the discomfort right out of their existence. This is a fatal mistake. You are intentionally softening the greatest tool you possess, your unbreakable will. Your instruction for today is direct. Voluntarily put yourself into controlled discomfort and pressure every single day. This is not about waiting for the world to challenge you. This is about microdosing the pressure on your terms. It's about building resistance muscle memory. Take the painfully cold shower first thing in the morning. The pressure of the freezing water is not deadly. It is an immediate, focused test of your compliance to your own command. Can you tell your comfort-seeking body no? Do the hardest, most complex, most draining task on your list immediately. The mental pressure of facing the most complex problem first is a potent discipline builder. Pressure doesn't break you. It builds you. Choose the hard workout. Go for the distance, not the easy repetition. When your muscles are screaming for relief and your lungs are burning, the decision to do one more set, one more mile, is a tiny, powerful victory of your will over your pathetic comfort-seeking mind. You don't need their permission to be uncomfortable. You need to create your own forge where you temper your spirit. You must stop waiting for an external crisis to activate your discipline. You must train that muscle before the crisis hits. When the real, external pressure inevitably arrives, the massive client loss, the personal setback, the unforeseen catastrophe, your disciplined, practiced response will be an automatic reflex, not a panicked, flailing reaction. This is the power of the privilege. It lets you pre-qualify your character. When you embrace the pressure in training, you guarantee your performance in the real world when it matters most. It's not about avoiding mistakes, it's about discipline. Stop seeing the difficult path as a punishment or a misfortune. See it as an exclusive invitation. See the high-stakes, pressure cooker game as the only place where true, lasting significance and growth are possible. This is the life you signed up for. If you wanted perpetual comfort, you'd be reading a motivational pamphlet, not this book. You are here because you choose the difficult path. You choose the pressure. You choose the growth. Pressure doesn't break you. It builds you. You have a choice now. Step back into the weak, comfort-seeking crowd, or step up to the pressure plate of your destiny. The answer must be obvious. Embrace the heat. It's the only way you'll discover the true, unyielding metal inside you. You've learned to embrace the heat and use pressure to build yourself. Now, it's time to realize that not all action is created equal. It's time to execute with precision and leverage. Chapter 10. The hard way is the only way. Stop looking for the easy button. Stop searching for the hack. Stop listening to gurus who promise instant success for minimum effort. It's all a lie. A dangerous, soft lie designed to keep you comfortable and weak. Your enemy is not failure. Your enemy is comfort. Your enemy is the constant, insidious urge to take the path of least resistance. We are establishing a radical truth today. The hard way is the only way. There are no shortcuts to mastery. There are no secret formulas to true, durable strength. The path you avoid is the path you need. The difficulty you run from is the lesson you must learn. Shortcuts destroy strength. Understand this principle. Shortcuts destroy strength. Every time you choose the easy path, you erode your resilience. You bypass the necessary suffering that builds mental and emotional muscle. You might save 5 minutes, but you sacrifice a pound of character. Imagine a weightlifter who uses half the weight and claims the same results. Ridiculous, right? You would laugh at his self-deception. Yet, you do the same thing every day when you choose to coast, to cut corners, or to accept good enough. Easy paths breed mediocrity. Hard paths forge mastery. The goal isn't just to finish the task. The goal is to maximize your internal growth during the task. That growth only happens when you are strained, when you are challenged, and when you are pushed past what you thought was your limit. The hard way is the strong way. It's a statement of fact, not a philosophy. Because the hard way forces you to invent solutions. It forces you to manage frustration. It forces you to confront the voice of quitting and silence it. This process, the struggle against difficulty, is the very definition of discipline. It's not about being smart, it's about discipline. The necessity of suffering. Every form of lasting achievement requires a period of suffering. This suffering is not punishment. It is calibration. It is a refinement process. Look at physical training. You don't get strong by doing what's easy. Muscle growth, hypertrophy, is literally the tearing down and rebuilding of tissue under stress. The pain is the signal of transformation. You have to push past the burn. You have to make the choice to continue. You have a choice. The hard way is the strong way. Look at craft mastery. Becoming world-class at a skill, writing, programming, welding, painting, demands years of deliberate, often frustrating, practice. You must tackle problems that feel insurmountable. You must repeat tedious, unglamorous drills. You must endure the pain of producing bad work until the good work finally emerges. You don't need their permission to struggle. Struggle is required. Look at emotional discipline. Developing true emotional control requires you to willingly sit in uncomfortable feelings, anxiety, rejection, uncertainty, instead of immediately distracting yourself or lashing out. That internal suffering is the forging of emotional steel. That's the key. The greatest value of the hard way is not the result you achieve, but the person you become while achieving it. The person who earned it the hard way is unbreakable. The person who sought the shortcut is perpetually fragile. Stop romanticizing the easy path. The world constantly markets the easy path. They sell you the template, the magic pill, the 5-minute solution. Stop buying it. You are being trained to be intellectually lazy. You are being trained to expect immediate gratification. This training is crippling you. You have a choice. You can choose the temporary comfort of the easy route, which leads to permanent weakness. Or you can choose the temporary pain of the hard route, which leads to permanent strength. The tough decision you make today, the one that feels heavy and daunting, is the one that will lighten your load 5 years from now. The easy decision you make today will weigh you down with regret and fragility later. The hard way is the strong way. The moment you encounter friction, resistance, or difficulty, your internal response must change. That feeling of dread is not a stop sign. It is a signpost. It is confirmation that you are on the correct path. It is proof you are building strength. It's not about avoiding mistakes, it's about discipline. You will make mistakes on the hard path, but you will learn from them and get stronger. The easy path guarantees you make the ultimate mistake, becoming complacent and soft. Your action step: intentional difficulty. We are not waiting for life to force us into a hard choice. We are initiating the challenge. We are building the fire ourselves. Your instruction for the next 30 days. Choose one area of your life and intentionally increase the difficulty. This must be a deliberate, self-imposed increase in friction. If your area is work, pick the single most complex, annoying, or terrifying project, the one you've been delaying, and commit to working on it for 2 hours a day without distraction. Don't look for an easier tool. Don't delegate. Do the grunt work yourself. If your area is finance, stop all unnecessary spending and commit to using only cash for a month. The mental friction of saying no repeatedly is the discipline. If your area is personal health, commit to a training routine that makes you genuinely uncomfortable, whether that's running a mile further or holding a plank for 2 minutes longer than you think you can. You don't need their permission to make your life harder. You need to do it to survive and to thrive. The point is to voluntarily embrace the struggle. To train your mind to say, I see the hard way and I choose it. This repeated, intentional friction will rewire your brain. It will turn difficulty from a threat into an opportunity. You have a choice. The comfortable life awaits the weak. The challenging life awaits the strong. Choose strength. Choose the resistance. Choose the only way that actually works. The hard way is the strong way. You have learned that the path of resistance is the path of growth. You have chosen the hard way. Now, let's make sure your powerful actions are focused on what truly matters. We must eliminate distraction at its source. Conclusion. Listen carefully, because everything you've heard in this audiobook leads to one truth. You are stronger when you hold back. Your restraint is not weakness. It is precision. It is strategy. It is evolution. You win when you don't react. You win when you don't explain yourself. You win when you stay calm while others lose control. You win when you choose discipline over impulse. Self-restraint is the foundation of self-respect. Self-restraint is how you protect your energy, your time, your mind, and your future. And now you know the truth. Power belongs to the person who is not controlled by their emotions. So here is your final challenge. For the next 30 days, master your reactions. Say less. Hold your ground. Control your energy. And watch how your world shifts around you. You don't need permission. You don't need validation. You just need discipline. This is the power of self-restraint. And now it's your move.